And there really probably, frankly, is only one place to start. It is the SEC championship game in Atlanta, the game that I think most years we kind of hope we're going to see. We know about Alabama. Georgia has certainly gotten to, if not surpassed them in terms of SEC supremacy. And we know what's at stake in this game. Georgia wins. They're not only in the college football playoff, but they're the number one seed. If Alabama wins, they're almost certainly in. And I think there is a scenario where if Georgia loses, they could get in. But certainly the loser of this game has their back against the wall. So there is so much on the line. This is the kind of game, keep in mind, people, a year from now with the 12-team college football playoff, the stakes are not going to be the same in this game. So let's enjoy this one. There is so much on the line, including a trip to the college football playoff. Should mention, by the way, Georgia, 5.5-point favorite in this game. The over-under set at 54.5. And when I look at this game, a couple things. First of all, last week was really interesting. We didn't do the rivalry week preview, but what stands out, the way that these two teams are entering this game, I don't think either of them played anything close to their best football game. I think both of them were frankly looking ahead. Remember, Alabama clinched 3 weeks ago, really. They played Chattanooga. Then they had this weird trip to Auburn where it's always tough to play. And we certainly know they did not play their best football. It was a game that was weird from the beginning. Auburn's in control. Even when Alabama's starting to get back, they can't really stop the run. And then, of course, we had the craziest ending. I would argue one of the craziest endings in the history of college football. Not only the 4th and 31 from Jalen Milroe, but everything that set it up. The muffed punt. Remember, it was 3rd and 20 at one point. Jalen Milroe had a 19-yard run to set up a 4th down, convert the 4th down. Then the snap goes over his head, setting up the 4th and 31. And he converts it. So it certainly wasn't the prettiest win for Alabama, but they survive everything that they were playing for coming in. They are still playing for going into this game. And of course, from Georgia's perspective, I think it was much the same. They clinched 3 weeks ago, but even when they clinched, they still had to play a game Tennessee team in Knoxville in one of the craziest atmospheres that they have played in during this run. So you knew they'd be hyped up for that game. Then they get the Georgia Tech game where, let's be honest, it's a rivalry game. It's on the road. It's mostly your fans. Don't think it was the best effort from either, but do think we're going to get a thriller in this conference championship game. In terms of the game itself, listen, I'll just be blunt. I think what this really comes down to is which team can make the other quarterback more uncomfortable. And I think we know that both quarterbacks kind of do it in different ways. I've talked about this for weeks with Georgia, right? Georgia, we think of them as power football, run it between the tackles, elite defense. They're so scary, NFL dudes everywhere. And that defense certainly is still very elite. But at the same time, you know why Georgia is 12-0 and probably regarded as the best team in college football? It is because Carson Beck is having the best season that any quarterback, I would argue, that Georgia has had under Kirby Smart. I don't even think it's an argument. I just think it's a fact. Top 10 pass offense in all of college football. They're throwing the ball on everybody, having great success, and that is what has led to these big margins of victory. Ole Miss could not stop the pass. Tennessee could not stop the pass. You go on through the list. Kentucky could not stop the pass. And Georgia, you add in the run game and the defense, which is always good, with an elite passing attack. That's how Georgia's putting up 40, 50 points a game on SEC opponents. From the Jalen Milroe, Alabama perspective, it's obviously different. Milroe's a different player. I've talked about it before. I give this team and Tommy Rees so much credit for figuring out a way to make it work with him. Not an elite passer, but I think to his credit, he has gotten better over the course of the year. And what's funny is his rushing stats aren't like that insane either. He's only got about 400 yards rushing. But boy, oh boy, does he make the rushing yards count. 12 total rushing touchdowns. And as weird as it sounds, I think we think of quarterbacks making big plays with their arm. This guy always seems to make the big play with his feet. When they need a first down, when they need a big play. Last week, before the 4th and 31, what ends up happening? He has, again, that 3rd and 20. He picks up 19 yards to put Alabama in position to convert a 4th down, which set up what was ironically the 4th and 31. And so when I look at this game, it is, can Alabama's pass rush make Carson Beck uncomfortable? Can Georgia's run defense make Alabama uncomfortable? And I think both those defenses are up for the task. when you look at these two defenses and where they rank, not only are they really good at what they do, they're really good at what they do specifically relative to what they're going to need to stop. So Georgia, the 28th ranked run defense in all of college football. Alabama, the 15th ranked pass defense in college football, which is a key going up against Carson Beck. And so when I look at this game, I want to dive in. I want to give you my pick, and I'm going to be blunt. First of all, I think the under is very much going to be in play. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be back and forth. But I'm just going to say it. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I not only like Alabama to win, I like Alabama to win this game. And I like Alabama to not only to cover, I like Alabama to win this game. Way to kill the big moment there, Torres. But listen, why I like Alabama, I'll tell you, it's a few reasons. First of all, one thing, put aside the Auburn game, okay? Because listen, one thing I think that we as a society are way too focused on the last thing that, like we as a society have the worst attention span ever. And all we focus on is the last thing that we saw and not the bigger picture of everything. Why do I bring it up? After Alabama lost, or after Alabama survived against Auburn in the Iron Bowl, and I know I'm tripping over my words here, but after they survived that game, all I heard was Alabama sucks. They're going to get killed by Georgia. They have no chance. And it's like, no. Think about the circumstances. First of all, think about this team. One, they have gotten better every single week, basically since the South Florida game in week 3. Every week they look a little bit better. Narrow win against Ole Miss. Narrow win on the road against Texas A&M. Slightly bigger win against Tennessee. Slightly bigger win against LSU. They've gotten better every week. But I also think that this is a team. Remember, last year, this team was not good in big games. They did not have success, and they had nothing to play for late in the year. And so I bring it up because you can forgive this specific group for overlooking Auburn, because I think the hype just got to their heads, right? Is that basically they clinched the SEC championship game a few weeks before. They were able to play Chattanooga. Then you got this weird road game against Auburn where you're supposed to be fired up, but are you really going to be fired up? Is it that big of a deal? We're going to win, blah, blah, blah. And then what ends up happening? It ends up being close, low scoring, etc. And I just bring it up to very simply say that you never want to overlook a rivalry game. But listen, a lot of these kids didn't grow up in Alabama. Like, the rivalry means something to them. But the SEC championship going to the playoff means more. Like, we could pretend the Iron Bowl is the biggest thing in the world to most of these Alabama players. No, they come to Alabama to win national championships and go to the college football playoff. And so I do think there was a look ahead thing. I'm not worried about the bad performance against Georgia last week, or against Auburn last week. And then I also think from the other perspective, I do think they match up nicely with Georgia. Thought it was interesting. I looked it up. Georgia has faced 0 top 25 pass defenses all year long, okay? Georgia on the season has faced 0 top 25 pass defenses all season long. The highest ranked pass defense they faced all year was against the Auburn Tigers, which are ranked 30th. And so I bring it up to very simply say that look at the numbers. They faced the 61st ranked pass defense in Ole Miss, 63rd in Missouri, 80th at Tennessee, 89th at Kentucky. Alabama top 15 pass defense, best pass defense they will see all year. I got Alabama not only covering, but winning this game outright. Final score 24-22. Alabama is your SEC champ.